There's a brilliant TED talk by Amy Edmondson about building a psychologically safe workplace. And she starts off with like three examples at the beginning of where it isn't safe. And one of them is like a hospital, and there's a nurse who sees this patient's, whatever they're supposed to get, like the dosage, and she thinks the dosage seems wrong. And she thinks, oh, I better contact the doctor who's, prescribed it. And as she does that, she remembers the last time that she spoke to him and challenged him on something or asked him on something. He basically bit her head off and, put her in her place and told her she was a nurse and not a doctor, kind of thing. So she said, well, this dosage, he's a doctor, he knows better, it's probably fine. And, yeah, it probably wasn't fine, but she was afraid. And so I think Amy Edmondson did a lot of her research in hospital environments. And one of the ways she asked people to think about was, how could we have done something more safely this week? And once people opened up, rather than, well, how many mistakes did you make this week, or where did you go wrong? Was there a way we could be better towards our patients, or be more, or treat them better, or whatever? And that opened up people's suggestions about better ways of doing things. But she talks about, like, how nobody, I think this is brilliant, no one jumps out of the bed in the morning and says to themselves, I'm off to work. And I really want to look ignorant, incompetent, intrusive, and negative.
I'm sure I know some people that do.
But they don't. But whatever shaped them, that's how it comes across. Because they're used to fighting their way through, or having to defend everything, or staying quiet.
If you're in a business at the moment, and if you think about your team, and if you're trying to establish whether have I got a psychologically safe environment or not, is if you think about your team and think, how often do they ask questions? How often do they come up with really creative, different solutions to problems? How often do they interact with people in different teams, different departments, to solve problems? And if the answers to those questions are not often, then there is a risk that you've got a psychologically unsafe environment, because people don't do those things because they don't feel comfortable.
Which means so many things. I mean, firstly, like, if you're not comfortable somewhere, it's not going to be long before you really want to go somewhere else. If you're not comfortable, you're probably not working at your best, which means you're not as productive as you could be, which means there's an impact on the bottom line. And I guess it leads to a level of inaction as well, because people will spend a lot of time trying to figure things out themselves rather than asking for help.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't make any sense.
But it just takes time and diminishes confidence. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because you know, there could be people listening to this going, comfortable. I don't want my people to be comfortable, because if you're comfortable, again, the negative connotations of comfortable are that you don't go outside your comfort zone, that you don't push yourself, that you don't do things that are difficult. But actually, you've got to feel a certain level of comfort in an environment before you can do any of those things. Whether you choose to or not is probably down to your individual level of motivation. But you've got to have that sense of, I am comfortable putting my hand up and my head above the parapet and being seen, because I know that if I'm seen, I won't be shot down, and I won't be, such like war metaphors going on here, and I won't be judged, and I won't be, cancelled, and all of those things. That you've got to have that comfort that you can do that and do that safely.
But also that I'll be listened to.
Yeah, really good point.
that I'm not going, I mean, shot down is a great a great metaphor, but it's also that you're not just going to like fob me off, which is almost as damaging, I think, because you're basically being ignored. And
sorry.
Yeah, no. And I think, for all of us, like, there's an element always of some sort of impression management kind of going on, where we don't want to look stupid or foolish. And even if we're not consciously aware of that, it will stop us asking those questions. And I mean, the kind of extreme of that is being afraid you're going to get fired, I think, which it's an awful way to feel. But I guess some people thrive on having that kind of environment to keep people on their toes. But what you were saying about the comfort and challenge, like Amy Edmondson comes up with 4 different zones. So, she talks about psychological safety, high and low, and then accountability and motivation, high and low. And the comfort zone is high psychological safety, but low motivation and accountability. So I'm kind of supporting you and I'm consultative, but I'm not challenging you. And then apathy, you're just low everywhere and it's like sad and no one's doing anything. But then she called the anxiety zone is where you have very high challenge, but no support and no consultation. And I think that's where a lot of people sit, and that's where your stress levels are high. And then the top one, which is the high of motivation and accountability and psychologically safe, means you're going to learn and grow and people are working together, but it means you're supported, consulted, and challenged. So you're not resting on your laurels. You're not like a soft leader. You're not, you're not holding back either. There's challenge, there's disagreement, there's dissent, there's everything, but it's done in a way that people get on with each other afterwards.